gummy bear.
It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this for May 9th, 2024. For the next hour or so, let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, could major first-party Xbox games start skipping Game Pass? But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host to Game Mess Mornings. It's Jan Ochoa, everybody. Jan, how are you doing?
Absolutely terrible, if I'm being frank. But hey, I'm going to drink this coffee that I found on my desk. I think this is 3 days old, but it's okay, Greg.
I mean, listen, the caffeine just gets better.
The energy we're bringing today.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, 3-day-old coffee.
Doesn't expire, right?
Not in my heart. No way.
Not in my heart.
Absolutely
not in this dojo, baby. We're going to over-caffeinate to get over the negative feelings.
Yeah, this,
and I'm sure today's slate of news, Grub, will be nothing but positivity.
Oh, it's a parade of good news. Jen, are you kidding me? Yeah, listen, I think if you leave the coffee out for a couple of days, you get the best of both worlds, right? You get the caffeine and then it ferments into alcohol. So you should be feeling pretty good, is what I'm hoping for you.
Grub, you just said the magic word, and I think that has inspired me to have a new goal. No, that's the third magic word. Sorry. I think probably not this game of the year, because, you know, maybe there are plans in motion. I don't completely know. I barely know what's happening right now. Somehow, you, me, Dan, Mike Minotti, and begrudgingly Jeff Baclar need to wind up in some type of parade float.
Oh, I love that. I love that. We can make that happen.
Oh my God, what if we just have a fun parade for Game of the Year one year?
Yeah, I mean, listen, what do you really need to make a parade happen? Probably not even a permit, I'm betting.
Oh, no. I mean, just like a couple people with balloons in the street and like fun cars, right?
Yeah. We do it like really early so there's no one out there, and we'll be really loud.
In Giant Bomb's hometown, Fargo, I forget the state.
Fargo, North Dakota, the Giant Bomb HQ. We should like just have a virtual office in Fargo and have all our stuff sent there, and we go there once a year to pick it up.
Yeah, let's have a fun satellite office. Someone was emailing the Bombcast saying like, hey, I'd like to mail y'all something or just like fun stuff. Where should I send it to? And I didn't know how to respond.
I do have a virtual office in Cleveland. You can have them send it to me, and then I'll forward it to everybody. Bring it with me to LA.
There we go.
Oh boy. All right. Let's explain what we do here and just get it. Let's get through this one, Jan. Does that sound good? Should we just let's just get through it? That's the plan today.
Oh, we're gonna get through it. We're gonna thrive, Grub.
Okay. All right. I trust you. Let's explain what we do here. Most weekday. I'm sorry. I forgot.
Is it not Thursday?
No, it's Thursday. All right.
Oh no.
Yeah, the game set's going on. It's in my mouth, Dan. For people that don't know what's going on, there's a lot of them happening, huh? You're just doing all of them again?
You didn't have to give him the permission, Grub.
Oh boy. The thing is, like, he didn't deactivate his account, so the only way for me to log in was with his account. Whatever. It is my fault. I didn't know it was IoT enabled. I didn't know I was dealing with an Internet of Things device, Jan. For people that don't know, watch yesterday's Blight Club. I plugged in the game set, logged in with Dan's account, and he can control it via the Internet of Things connectivity protocol in my home, and it's going off right now. And frankly, I don't even know what the smells are anymore, Jan. It all just smells like the Axe body spray aisle. That's all it smells like to me.
Ooh, oh, yeah. That's a fun one, Grub.
All right, this is just juicing me up. There we go. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. I'm trying to take breaths, but every time I do, I'm choking to death over here. All right, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with Microsoft says it needs games like Hi-Fi Rush the day after killing its studios. This is from Ash Parrish at The Verge. Today, one day after Microsoft announced that it would shut down 4 of its game studios, Matt Booty, head of Xbox Game Studios, held a town hall to discuss the division's future goals. We need smaller games that give us prestige and awards, Booty told employees, according to internal remarks shared with The Verge. For some listeners on the call, it was a surprising goal. Microsoft had just shut down the Japanese developer Tango Gameworks, which was coming off the small and prestigious hit title Hi-Fi Rush. Hi-Fi Rush, which was a surprise release last year, was praised for its innovation and charm. The rhythm action game featured music by the Black Keys and Nine Inch Nails, with an art style that evoked the hyper-stylized games of the PS2 era. Just 4 months after its release, Hi-Fi Rush hit 3 million players. During the 2023-2024 award season, the game went on to win a Game Award, a Game Developer's Choice Award, and a BAFTA. While Microsoft hasn't shared sales data, it was apparently happy with the game when rumors swirled that it wasn't doing well commercially. Aaron Greenberg, vice president of Xbox Games Marketing, wrote on Twitter that Hi-Fi Rush was a breakout hit for us and our players in all key measurements and expectations. By all accounts, including Microsoft's own, Tango Gameworks made a hit and something wholly unlike anything it made before. Before Hi-Fi Rush, Tango Gameworks was known exclusively for its survival horror games, including the Evil Within series and Ghostwire Tokyo. In an interview with Kinda Funny Games, Xbox head Phil Spencer spoke about how important it was for studios like this to be able to make games outside their comfort zone. There's more to this, and there's actually a lot more from this conversation that Matt Booty had, and we'll get to all those stories here in a second. This one really struck a lot of people, though, for obvious reasons, right? You say you want smaller games that can win awards. And I think in a lot of people's estimation, that's exactly what Hi-Fi Rush is. Now, there is some back and forth online about whether or not Hi-Fi Rush is really a small game. It's like, it took, 4 or 5 years to make. It had a pretty significant team size. And I get all that, but they charged $30 for the game, Jan. Microsoft told us it was a small game. Who is anyone else to disagree with that? $30 saying that, hey, this game that we're putting out from first party Xbox, $30. To me, that's like the smallest kind of game that a company like that puts out. They don't put out smaller games than that. So they want even smaller games that can also win awards. To me, that can't be what he means, because that's crazy. The chances of you being a company that can make like Balatro, to be like, hey, we're going to be the company that goes and makes the next Balatro. You don't just do that. That's not something you say because it's not something you can do. It's impossible to be like, we're going to make the next breakout hit that comes out of nowhere. No one can do that. If you could, everyone would be doing it. So that's just crazy talk. So to me, Hi-Fi Rush is exactly the kind of game he should be referring to here. And if he's not, what is going on?
I have no idea what he's talking about. And it feels like that Mad Booty has decided to walk into the rake aisle at Home Depot because he's just stepping on all of them. And to your point, Grub, we see the polar opposite happening at Sony, where they invest so much into games as a service, like live service games, because they want to try and recapture the popularity of something like Destiny 2, the original Destiny even. And they're not able to do that when they're purposely funneling money to do that. I don't trust Microsoft Xbox at this point to even fund smaller projects.
No.
At all. Like, that does not seem like that is in their interest at all, especially how they've been taking projects and just putting all of those resources behind Call of Duty and Lord knows what other Candy Crush, other Activision strong properties that they have. And you're right. This whole time, no matter what the arguments are online, Microsoft themselves have constantly, from the jump, framed Hi-Fi Rush as a smaller title. It is 100% that I think you should leave Sketch with the hot dog suit of like, we're trying to find the guy who did this. And like, you had the studio, you had the foothold in Japan, yet for whatever metrics, for whatever reason, you deemed that Tango Gameworks, Hi-Fi Rush was not up to your standards that you yourself are defining, because you are constantly moving this goalpost to try and seem like y'all are not in the wrong.
Yeah, and I think that there, more details in this next story kind of play to that. Xbox will reportedly cut more jobs. Earlier this week, Microsoft announced a number of their studios were being shuttered, including the aforementioned Arcane Austin and Tango Gameworks and AlphaDog Games, while Roundhouse Studios will be absorbed into ZeniMax Online Studios to work on the Elder Scrolls Online. This follows the 1,900 layoffs earlier this year. According to Bloomberg's reliable Jason Schreier, folks across the Xbox organization have been told more cuts are on the way. It's unclear at the moment which divisions will be affected or if any more studio closures could be in the cards. While it was already fairly clear, according to Schreier's reporting, the closing of Arcane Austin and Tango Gameworks came as a shock to the employees, as both studios were in the process of pitching new games and staffing up for future developments. Tango was said to be pitching a sequel to Hi-Fi Rush, while Arcane was pitching a new single-player immersive sim in the vein of the Dishonored games. Per Schreier, at an internal town hall, ZeniMax media head Jill Braff, ZeniMax is the umbrella company for Bethesda, said the goal is to focus on Bethesda with fewer, bigger projects. So it's like, okay, already we're like mixed messaging, fewer, bigger projects. Matt Booty says that. Honestly, I don't really think Matt Booty meant what he said. That's let's like say that first. He said, hey, we want smaller things that are going to win awards and be prestigious. I don't really think I believe that anymore. I think he's just kind of saying that because it's something to say. Does that sound right?
When and where did he say this again, Grub?
He said this in an internal. I think he said this as part of the same town hall, I believe. So internally to other employees.
I think you have to know, Matt Booty, at that point, when after announcing like these studio closures, that whatever you say is going to get spun off, and you have to take much more careful attention to what you're saying in this very precious and tumultuous moment within your own company. And whether or not he intended to say that, like, we want smaller games, like that win awards. Like, isn't that just the general goal across the board, Matt?
Yep.
And like whether or not he meant what he said, like I still feel like there's a grain of truth there that they want to reap the rewards, but not with anything that they have planted over the last couple of years, Grub. Yep. They just want, and like their pattern so far has just been like massive acquisitions and just taking what is working there and like completely forgetting whatever they have planted for the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this stuff is like timing, and I think it's poor vision. I think what really happened here was the cart doth got before the horse again. And I think this is the same problem that happened with Skyrim. I think Starfield, excuse me. Starfield was like, hey, over at Bethesda, they would say things like, hey, we're looking at how people play Skyrim, and they play that game for 10 years. And so we're going to make this game one of those games. And we're going to focus on the stuff that's going to keep people playing for 10 years. And they didn't get all the basic shit right in the first place. I think when Microsoft was approaching like their future with Xbox, I think they're like, hey, we have Game Pass and subscriptions, and they would say things like there's 2 billion people playing video games in the world, and we want to get them in the Xbox ecosystem. And they were looking so far into the future that they didn't realize like they needed to get the fundamentals right now, or else they would spoil this entire generation. And now there's this terrible sentiment around Xbox, and people aren't buying the hardware, and so the Game Pass isn't growing. And Game Pass with the, I talked to Phil about this on the couch last year. Hey, seems like you need to sell more Xboxes to get people on Game Pass. And you'd say, well, it's growing faster on PC. And I'm sure that's true, but the most likely scenario to get Game Pass to grow like long term is to get them into the hardware right now, because that guarantees most of those people are going to get onto Game Pass, and that's not happening. So they have like several hurdles and roadblocks and troublesome spots in front of them right now that prevents them from succeeding in the immediate future. And it's all because I think they were blinded by this long-term vision that they foresaw, and now they have no bridge to get over that gap. There's nothing between them to help to sustain them until they get to that point. So they're left with the only option of cutting costs. And that's, what the story says, is they're probably going to cut more jobs because they're looking to cut more costs. And at a certain point, it's like, okay, yeah, why is that happening? Well, I think we can all trace it back to you spent $69 billion on Activision, and so now Satya Nadella is paying more attention to you. And that seems to be exactly what happened. The Eye of Sauron, as everyone keeps saying, has turned on to Xbox, and it's like, hey, before you were fine. It's like you were kind of a rounding error. You were kind of this thing where we could let you do your thing over on the side, even when you were buying Bethesda. A few $1 billion. What's that to Microsoft? when you can start like getting close up like to $100 billion spent on these acquisitions, now it's like, hey, where is that money going? How is it working for us? You said it would work really well for us. Is it? And I think the only way to make that like profit margin look correct at this moment is cutting costs, because they're not making more money.
No. And like they're not, I hate to just use a basic word, but they're not winning, Crub, right?
No.
They're not winning any of these races or any of these investments. And it just feels like a lot of mismanagement.
Yes.
Like straight up, of like buying and acquiring all of these studios and not looking at the road directly in front of them was never going to pan out well. Like, they're making a lot of extreme bets on completely unproven things in this moment. It's fine that Game Pass is growing on PC, but you're right. Like, those people on PC have multiple options to play other games. If you were playing Xbox Game Pass on PC, that is not your only means. That is not your only game front if you were playing on a PC. Xbox, that is your only means to go play them unless you're buying the physical games or downloading them from the store. It just seems like they have been making every wrong decision and not taking the responsibility of said decisions, Grub, and trying to mask it by having these bigger stories and bigger moments of like, oh, well, we just acquired these guys and like this is going to fix everything.
Yeah.
And none of these acquisitions ever have been an instant fix for either side of the company.
No. Yeah. And it's exactly. And I think that's what happened with, we will fill out Game Pass by acquiring things, and that will be the future. And it's like, no, the future was and always has been, and seems like it's going to continue to be, maybe it'll change someday, making great games that people can't ignore. I mean, it's so basic that it feels silly to even say that at this point. But you know, Starfield didn't hit. Halo didn't hit. If these things had, that I think that does move the needle for Game Pass and getting people onto that ecosystem and being like, hey, an Xbox is worth it, so this is a game I can't ignore. And these games are definitely games that people felt like they can ignore for whatever reason, however anyone feels about them personally, whatever. The masses did not glom onto those games in the way that they have with an Elden Ring or like even a Dragon's Dogma 2 or something like that, where it's like, hey, we're going in to see what this game's all about. That wasn't happening with those games.
No.
And that's the key issue, is that would have been the solution to the immediate problem. And instead they seem to be focused on these long-term things, assuming that everything would go swimmingly, and it hasn't. Now, that leads into the next story. After buying up studios, Xbox says it doesn't have the resources to run them. This is from Zach Swisen at Kotaku. After shutting down multiple Bethesda studios, Xbox and Bethesda leadership held a town hall meeting with staff to discuss the closures, explaining that the company's studios had been spread too thin and that it wanted to focus on fewer projects moving forward. On May 7th, Xbox announced that it was closing 3 studios. We've been over that. As reported by Bloomberg, during the meeting, Booty praised Hi-Fi Rush, but wouldn't go into specific details on why the studio behind the colorful action game had been shut down. Speaking more broadly about the closings, Booty reportedly explained that Xbox and Bethesda studios had become spread too thin, like peanut butter on bread. Sounded like Bilbo Baggins over there. And that team leaders felt understaffed. The idea being that by closing studios, Xbox would free up resources elsewhere within the company. Booty also told staff at the meeting that Arcane Austin Studio had nothing to do, the closing had nothing to do with Redfall flopping with fans and critics. Reportedly, both Tango and Arcane Austin had pitched games to work on next, including a Hi-Fi Rush sequel and possibly a new Dishonored or similar single-player immersive sim-like game. Those likely won't happen. They definitely won't happen.
Grub, none of this makes any sense with any of the stories that we've been reading on this website, on Game Mess and Bombcast, where Microsoft wants all of these little different brands to operate independently. What do you mean leadership feels spread thin when it doesn't feel like there was leadership to begin with? And like Phil even said, I think during that Kind of Funny interview, that they should have stepped in sooner during the process for Redfall, and then they could have avoided Redfall being how it was. I don't get it, Grub. And it feels like Microsoft doesn't have strong brand identity, and everything that I associated with Xbox has kind of gone out the window or is kind of like slowly like stepped back into the shadows. Like, I don't care about Halo anymore. I don't think about it. Even if a Gear 6 is coming this SGF, I don't quite care about it. Even if they were to announce a new Xbox, it doesn't feel like they themselves are behind a new physical console. And that sentiment, I think, is also slowly eking its way out into like the general gaming populace. And we've seen the proof with the sales that it's like, what are y'all trying to sell? What are y'all trying to do? It can't just be Game Pass. It can't just be acquiring things, because Call of Duty, Candy Crush, we joke around about that being like the main cash cows now, but those cash cows are eventually going to dry up and can't support your whole gaming business.
Yeah.
It just seems insane.
And I think like it feels like they realized at some point that the hands-off like way of doing things, the hands-off style of management was causing them a lot of problems that they would have to fix later. And one, they didn't have the capacity or the skills to fix those problems at that point. And then two, when they were like, okay, we need to step in earlier and start guiding some of these studios with and giving them the resources and the support they need earlier, they're like, oh, because we set it up to be a hands-off structure and everyone was sort of in charge of themselves, we now no longer have the ability to get to each one of these studios in any real way because there's so many of them. Something that, you know, these are criticisms people have lobbed at Microsoft for years now. And so it's like, okay, well, you could have just, you didn't think about this before. And it's like, maybe they did, maybe they didn't, whatever. They're at this point where now, okay, they feel like they have to change something. And in order to rein this whole thing in, and you know, let's be clear, they're reining it in not just to like make it easier to manage and all that stuff. It's to save money. They want to be spending less money. That's what this is really all about. They're cutting costs and they're cutting jobs, and they're going to keep these IPs and maybe do something again with them one day. But while like the pickings are slim in terms of, hey, the economy has had this downturn and people are spending less on games, and capital's hard to come by. It's more expensive. In the meantime, they're like, okay, let's pull back spending, cut jobs, and I think the other point that you made about like this lack of vision, there's no sort of like fallback position. Like, let's get back to the basics. Let's get back to what Microsoft does well with games, because they've sort of sullied all of that. The lack of vision has made it so there is no ground to return to. And that's why I think they're scrambling so hard, and why this feels like such a huge mess, and kind of why we've been in this situation over and over again with Xbox in various ways. Again, this just all feels very similar to last year, just like when Redfall was going really bad, but now at a much bigger scale and in a world where the economy is much worse off. So yeah, listen, I think Microsoft's going to get through this, whatever. I just don't know why, like, tell me why I care if you get through it or not. Because it just seems like if I'm here to be playing games, I don't feel like I can rely on you to provide that. And when I think about the other side of it, hey, are you a good place to provide a home for developers to be creative? Doesn't seem like that's happening either. So what are you? What is the vision?
Yeah, and especially with what is in the horizon for 2025, 2026, you have GTA 6 coming out. Are folks like going to flock to an Xbox to play GTA 6? Or are they just going to assume that like the Xbox is kind of washed at this point?
That thing's going to get Harry Pottered. That thing's going to get associated with PS5 so hard.
100%. And especially if like the PS5 Pro drops this holiday season, people are going to think like that's the new hotness. I couldn't get my hands on a PS5. I can get my hands on a PS5 Pro, or the inverse, right? They can't get their hands on a PS5 Pro. PS5s are now more readily available. Yeah. I'm going to get that in preparation for GTA 6. I'm going to go play Harry Potter because I think that's the only thing I can play it on. Because like, despite the sentiment of Xbox saying we're going to meet the gamers where they are, I don't think they know where the gamers are anymore.
Yeah, and I think that trying to meet the gamers where they are, I think they're going to be like, okay, we don't care. We are already playing the games we want to be playing. We've already decided. Like Gen X and millennials have all sort of like solidified in how they're going to be doing things. And okay, so now that means you got to try to win over Gen Z. Feels like Gen Z's already kind of decided as well. Like they're playing their games on their phone and they're playing a handful of games.
And like, that's the insane thing, Grub, is like Microsoft was slowly and now quickly losing who could have been their next core audience to phones.
Yep.
Like, and sure, there's Call of Duty Mobile, but there's 100 other shooters out there. Fortnite and everything. Nikke, that game that Sean was bringing up by the Stellar Blade people.
Yes, the Shaky Lady game. Yeah.
Yeah. What does the Shaky Lady game smell like, Grub?
Smells like tire fire. I don't know, man.
That's what the situation is. Yeah. Good commentary, Dan.
Thanks for your input, Dan Reichert. All right, and more from this. Let's see here. The next story is Call of Duty on Game Pass is not guaranteed. Microsoft is having internal debates about that. This is from Blair Marnell at GameSpot. When Microsoft closed its acquisition of Activision Blizzard last year, some players assumed this meant the next installment in the Call of Duty franchise would hit Game Pass on day one of its release. But according to a new report, that may not be the case. Per the report, Microsoft has had internal debates about whether to put Call of Duty's latest release on Game Pass. Call of Duty is one of the top-selling video game series in the world, and there's apparently concern that placing the next title on Game Pass will only hurt its revenue stream. Per the report from The Verge, Microsoft has considered another increase of the price of Game Pass Ultimate. Since a final decision hasn't been made, it could mean we will still see a future where Call of Duty release appears on most versions of Game Pass. Okay, I mean, I think this is the same story we've also kind of assumed at this point, that these games that come out on Game Pass don't make as much money from day one sales. I mean, that was definitely the story with Hi-Fi Rush, and that still is the story I'm sticking by because that's what happened. But it's like a lot of games experience that. And the point was, well, Game Pass is going to keep growing, and that will justify it. Now, Game Pass has stopped growing because the Xbox has stopped selling. That's the reason that's happened. That is just straight up what has happened, regardless of what they say. And so now they're at this crossroad where there's this wall in front of them, and they have this like catch-22 of, well, the only way to get Game Pass to keep growing and sell more Xbox is to get people excited about Game Pass. But now if we do that, then we're not making enough money. And at Microsoft, Satya Nadella expects us to be making money. And so we can't put Call of Duty on Game Pass because then we'll lose the money out from that. That's a shitty position to be in. I understand that. But at a certain point, like, so we're abandoning it. Is that what the discussion is? Because it's not just like Call of Duty now in Game Pass. That is, if you make that decision, that is full up admitting defeat, and I think it's a full-on recession from that position. Like, hey, we are conceding that space. That is no longer the goal, and maybe it shouldn't be, but that's the conversation, right, Jan?
Yeah, like the previous couple of years, they've been pushing Game Pass so hard as like their bread and butter. More so than the consoles at this point, that if you are not putting this or Call of Duty, on Game Pass, it feels like they're not even treating the thing that they've been pushing as like an important piece of their puzzle.
Yeah.
It invalidates like everything that they've been saying in terms of like Game Pass and like how integral it is to their business when they're not putting what could potentially draw more people to their business. I don't like. Have they thought or tried like writing these thoughts out on a whiteboard?
Yeah, right. Like people are like, hey, in the chat are saying, hey, they should have had this conversation before, and it's like, as far as I understand, that's not how Microsoft does it. They buy it, and then they have conversations, and they do research, and they figure things out later. And again, I think that goes back to the lack of vision. But it's like for these years, as we would have these conversations, Jan, we'd be like, okay, the future of, and I smell it, Dan, don't worry. I promise you I smell it. The future of Game Pass, sure, it's going to be hard. It's peaking at 30, 35 million, whatever. But as they sell more Xboxes, things will go fine. And the way you sell more Xboxes is to make games that people want to get an Xbox. And I just assumed this entire time they fully understood that, and that's what they were doing. So all these other problems would sort of be like, okay, yeah, that's a problem now, but they'll be able to solve it later. And now it's like that. Making these games is hard. Obviously, I think they're like, hey, we had that with Starfield, and that's going to be the answer to our solution. But when it wasn't, I think they immediately were like, nothing else is going to do that. We really have to rethink everything. So, I mean, the way I'm reading this is they have conceded. They are more interested in like, hey, let's put more games on PlayStation. That's actually where we're going to make more money than putting more games on Game Pass. And okay, fine. I get it. You got bills to pay. You made a lot of acquisitions. You have bosses to satisfy. I get that. But the second that people get like, as soon as the wind comes out of that company, like, oh, it rushes out, and everyone's like, oh wait, things have changed. The last almost 10 years of you talking about Game Pass and that being the future and best deal in gaming, and get this one service and you'll be able to play all these games. So once that cracks, I think the underlying fundamental trust in Xbox and this leadership team is broken for good. Obviously, a lot of people have already felt like it's been broken, but at that point, it's like, we trusted this whole process. We thought we were moving in the same direction. We bought into it. Once you back off from that, I just don't know if I can go along with this ride anymore. And then I think it's like Xbox feels done at that point. I don't know, not to be so dramatic, but it feels that way.
Yeah. Like I don't want to think that, because more competition is healthy to the industry as a whole. But it feels like they're just, crap. It just feels like they didn't check the weather.
Yeah,
it feels like they're stepping out into a rainstorm with flip flops and tank top. Like, buddy, you could have avoided all of this. You're spending too much money. Well, maybe don't spend the money.
Yep.
Yeah. Like, Grub, like it's also hard to feel bad overall though, because it's like, what are y'all doing? Right? Look at a Google sheet, y'all. Yep. Like, learn basic formulas in Excel, and like it is just, if it is destroying our confidence or like removing their credibility, like amongst like folks that tune into this program,
right?
Visit Kotaku, Verge, etc. Then I have to imagine that same sentiment is also spreading out across gaming as a whole, where like folks are less and less interested in Xboxes. It doesn't matter how many special edition SpongeBob skinned Xboxes you come out with. It is not going to be enough to sell this. And also, it's like, cool, I can get stuff on Game Pass, but like, when you have other means of playing games that are becoming more accessible, like an Asus Roger, a Steam Deck, where you can play PC games, and like those are reaching more audiences than ever, it's like, why would I go here?
Yeah.
And like and for some people that like where COD is not their main jam, they have already gone to PlayStation. They have already gone to the Nintendo Switch. Yep. They don't have the casual audience, and they don't have like the AAA blockbuster audience at all either. And like that multiplayer experience, people have already gone to PlayStation for that.
PC.
They've gone out of games, PC, or they've gone to mobile.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like to wrap this up, like go back before we get to the next story. If I had Hi-Fi Rush in front of me and I was in charge of that company, I'm like, this is not $30. Let's make a big deal out of this. Let's take a stand. Let's believe in this game. Let's say this is the future of Xbox. Make a big deal out of it. And I don't think that necessarily changes a lot of the calculus of how the game like makes money. But I think having like making a statement that is what you're going for, that is an identity you can build around. And it just seems like they had no sense of that, even once the game was out there and was doing well. And yeah, they would defend it and say, yeah, we really are happy with Tango Gameworks in this game. But that's the most they ever really said. And it just felt like if you can't take a W like that and make it work for you, that speaks volumes about what you're capable of doing when you have other good games. And it's like in the meantime, while you have games that are either floundering or missing the mark, it's like, well, no wonder you can't figure things out, because even when you have one in front of you that is great, you don't know what to do with it. So, and yeah,
and even if we're looking at supposedly smaller games, something like Pentiment, like for a while I associated Xbox when like Summer of Arcade was a massive thing of like, oh cool, these indie games that I can't check out on a PC, they're coming out on Xbox. I can check these out here, like smaller neat titles. They could have gotten behind Pentiment in a major way, where like, if like Halo's not your bag, we also have like a wide variety of projects, neat titles like this. Like if you are not that type of gamer, we have everything else in our catalog to like pacify you, to keep you here.
Yeah. I do want, like, at a certain point, like, Phil has been there a long time. Well, he must still believe in this to be sticking around. It's like, he's probably made enough money. He could just leave, right? Like at a certain point, he must believe in something here still. I mean, because why keep going through this? Why keep like putting up with over and over again, having to come out and speak on behalf of what you're doing, and then have people like getting mad for justifiable reasons and having to do the apology tours, and then having people get sick of your apology tours. At a certain point, like why not just leave? Not that I'm not masking. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just wondering, like, why do you think they keep sticking around?
He's hiding a child, Grub.
Oh, okay. Well, now shit. I'm not up on the beef scene, so I didn't know that. Okay.
BBL Philly.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. The diss tracks that's where you should get all the game news. All right. Hellblade 2 is getting marketed ahead of launch. Xbox, that's according to an Xbox exec who insisted that amid criticism. This is from Eddie McHugh at GameSpot. Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 releases on May 21st, and some people online have criticized Xbox for not doing enough, in their eyes, to promote the game ahead of launch. Aaron Greenberg, a longtime marketing executive for Xbox, has responded to this, saying a global paid media campaign for the game just began on May 8th. The promotional campaign is live on YouTube, HBO Max, Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, Samsung, and more. Additionally, Xbox is hosting a creator event to help promote the game right now in Iceland. Greenberg said Microsoft has more promotional activities in the works for Hellblade 2, including ads for the game in movie theaters with particular brands and via Amazon's Fire TV platform, among other places. I think this is an example, Jan, of increased scrutiny because of other things not hitting. A lot of games have had shorter marketing campaigns. That's a in vogue thing. That's a trendy thing right now and has been for a long time. So this game coming out later this month, the campaign starting right now, a couple weeks before it comes out. That's not too strange. But that doesn't mean it's probably still worthy of talking about and criticizing. Like, do you think they should have started talking about this game earlier?
I think so, especially when folks may be confused as to what this game is, and like if they need this game, Grub, to be a big hit, I think you gotta start marketing it sooner. I don't know if you run into the problem of like it puts a bad taste in people's mouth and they feel like it's oversaturated. Let's start talking about the game at the end of. Oh,
no, you're back. You're fully back. I think we're okay. Just lost you for a second. Oh, it's my internet though. Okay, I'm dropping frames here. Let me see here. Let me see if that's going to bounce back. Yeah, I think Phil's coming for us. I think we should be back. Keep going, Jan.
Yeah, I don't think that you run into the problem of oversaturation if you try and market this game as early as March, perhaps. But I think you could at least better position it where it doesn't like annoy gamers to the point where it's like Monopoly Go on your TikTok feed, or it is like the same slide that you see over and over again. Also, just like building like some type of brand recognition with it, because to be honest, I constantly forget what this game is.
Yep. I mean, I'm not someone who's too into Hellblade. And so Hellblade 2 is going to be one of those wait and sees for me always. And the marketing campaign's probably not going to change that. I don't know. A couple times I've seen this game in like the showcases and been like, just technically it looks so cool. And these scenes look dynamic. Maybe they're not. But I think there's a chance that it could be my kind of thing in some of these combat scenarios. But overall, like, I'm like, I didn't jive with Hellblade 1. And so I'm not expecting much from Hellblade 2, but that's me. I think, people are noticing this lack of talking about the game. And since then, like Greenberg says, people have started saying, oh, I am seeing it on Reddit. I am seeing it pop up on YouTube and things like that when I turn on my TV and go to the YouTube app. But I think a lot of people are also like, hey, what's up with this like Xbox ad, or I'm sorry, Xbox tweet that just is like Senua's Saga Hellblade 2, May 21st, and then a picture of Senua. It's weird. It's a weird thing. Like, I mean, okay, I'm no social media person, but the social media people I know, Sean was in chat. I think Nikki's gonna say the same thing. It's not a good tweet. That's why, like, this doesn't like create that sense of urgency, right? That you're supposed to be creating.
Grub, I don't think they even used like anything in their press kit for this.
Yeah,
I think they took a screenshot from the trailer.
Yeah, it's
also
weird.
Did you see Opera GX's reply to this tweet?
Oh no, let me see here. I can't believe they also closed their marketing department. Opera GX going after them. Hey, on Opera GX, there's a key shortcut. I've always meant to talk about this, and I always forget. This is the gamer browser, everybody. There's a shortcut that you could hit when you're on YouTube, and it'll bring up little reaction GIFs, so you can do screen captures or whatever. Or if you're streaming, it'll be like, hey, here's a little reaction GIF, and they've taken many of the clips from this show and put me in there because they wanted me to talk about it. So hey, I'm in the gamer browser now, everybody. Shout outs to Opera GX. I'm not getting any money for that. So yeah. There you go.
Cut the GIF, I guess.
Cut the GIF. All right. You know what we should do? Let's take a quick break. When we get back, a few more headlines to talk about. The news should start turning positive. Parentheses positive. Here any second.
I don't smoke cigarettes.
Oh no, there went my internet again. All right, fade into black. Right, we'll be right back, everybody. All right, we're back, and we'll have to use the local recording for this one. We put this up on the podcast feed. We'll see. All right, soon your Nintendo Switch won't connect to Twitter anymore. That's the next headline from John Walker at Kotaku. Elon Musk continues to run Twitter in a variety of questionable ways, and surely one of the oddest is the decision to charge vast amounts of money for access to the site's API. As such, major firms are dropping integration with the Hell site, the latest being Nintendo. From June 10th, you will no longer be able to share screenshots and video from your Switch to the app. Time was, Twitter offered access to its API, the mechanism protocols by which two different pieces of software can communicate with one another, to encourage other apps to interact with the social media company's systems in a way that you would think would be a good thing. If you remember the days of downloading those Chrome extensions that would let your Twitter pop out of the taskbar, or found a fun site that analyzes the content of your feed, it would be using that API. But in Musk's infinite wisdom, back in February 2023, the so-called Twitter announced it would be charging for access. And it's like $40,000 a month for some companies or something like that. It's crazy. Microsoft and Sony have both already done this. Nintendo's done this now. As always, Twitter came out and was like, we love gamers, and, we're going to keep things cool. You should just download stuff to your phone and then tweet it. So what the fuck are you talking about? What are you talking? That's so stupid. Okay, if I had a platform that was about getting people to come on there and see what other people are saying, and there were these giant corporations that were making sure that all of the cool gaming stuff that was happening gets posted to Twitter first and for free, as a company, I don't have to pay for them to do that. They want to do that. And instead, my idea is, what if we charge them? He is so fucking stupid, Jan. I cannot stand it.
I just it needs to go away. It needs to go away, and then we'll all be free, Grub.
Yes. Yeah. I want to be free,
It
Jan.
doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense, Grub, because it's exactly like what you said. You want people to use the platform. Maybe let's make it easy for companies to use the platform. A little tidbit. I use this app called Time Hop, and Time Hop, you just log into your social accounts and everything, like Instagram. It shows you what you did this day, last previous years. One of the fun things was seeing my tweets over the last couple of years of oh, this is where I was at this moment. Oh, that's cool. Oh, I'm a dumbass. And when Musk took over, they saw that API cost and they're like, fuck y'all, we're not paying however much a month. And then if you have all these other companies dropping out, Grub, not just gaming, but other social social platforms, it's do you not like making money, Elon Musk? Are you that much of a prick?
And it's the grand idea all along was, let's get some more money from the people using the platform. That's a good idea. And it's you have LeBron James creating content for your site, and he's not asking for money from you. He's doing it for free. Can you imagine what any other website would pay LeBron James to write stuff for them? And you're getting it for free, and your idea was, let's charge him $8 per month. Now, eventually they changed that, and we'll just give away to people who are important, like they did originally. But he's no, let's we're gonna charge them. That's a great idea. It is just such a dumb person's idea of how to run a company, clearly. And this is another example of it. I don't even get who's the person on X Gaming, the Twitter gaming profile. writing, "The gaming community is one of the largest and most vibrant communities on our platform, and we are dedicated to enhancing and supporting gaming-related features. As part of Nintendo's planned discontinuation of sharing content to X from the Nintendo Switch, from June 11th, users will need to download Switch gameplay media directly to their smartphones and share it natively on our platform. Our partnership with Nintendo remains strong, and we are working together to ensure a smooth transition for all users. We will continue collaborating with partners to bring new and exciting experiences to our global gaming community." The smooth transition thing, that's just bullshit, right? They're just saying that. There's
100%.
nothing happening there, right?
No, there's nothing happening. If they already lost PlayStation and Microsoft on their platforms, they're not going to do jack shit to pacify Nintendo.
Yep. And
they should be honored that Nintendo even figured out API.
Right. Nintendo doesn't know what an API is. Yeah.
They just bought an Ethernet cord last week.
Oh boy. God,
they're on Cat 2.
We're making fun of Nintendo's internet while mine is breaking right actively. We keep popping back immediately. I think someone is outside just shaking my internet cable. All right, let's wrap up this show then. Warner Brothers CEO says disappointing Suicide Squad release was overshadowed, that overshadowed its overall financial situation for the entire studio. This is from Chris Scullion at VGC. The CEO and president of Warner Brothers Discovery has singled out Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League as the reasoning for the underwhelming Q1 results for its entire studio's division. During a financial presentation, David Zaslav, a big fan of the show, said the studio's division, which includes Warner Brothers Pictures, DC, Warner Brothers Television Group, Warner Brothers Games, and New Line Cinema, saw a decrease in revenues compared to the previous year. Zaslav said that was mainly down to the difference between the successful release of Hogwarts Legacy last year and the disappointing release of the Suicide Squad game this year. Warner Brothers Discovery's great storytelling IP, including Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Superman, and many other parts of the DC universe, are largely underused, Zaslav said. We are hard at work fixing that. It's a core value and a key advantage for us. We have the characters and the stories people love and yearn for everywhere in the world in every language. And then we went on to blame Suicide Squad, which I'm sure did underperform. Absolutely. That seems like it was a bad idea. But yeah, what do you think the future is for Rocksteady? What do you think the future is for DC video games? I don't know. At this point, it's another mess, right?
Unfortunately, it does feel like a mess, Grub, and it doesn't. I don't see a bright future or an immediate fix because. I mean, the next upcoming DC game is a meta exclusive, and I don't think that is necessarily going to pacify or excite that existing Batman audience. DC has been in a tricky spot constantly, haven't they? Like not only with games, but like their movies. And I felt like for a while they were the leader in terms of like superhero games, right? Like
definitely
the Arkham games.
The Arkham games were massive and huge successes critically and commercially.
Yeah. I think they forgot that they made those games.
Yep. Black Mamba says, what about the Wonder Woman game? That's still coming. And it's like, well, that's interesting because we just heard recently on the movie side of things, I can't remember the name of the director, apologies, but she was saying that WB is not interested in making any more Wonder Woman movies. It's like, so they've lost their appetite for Wonder Woman movies. I wonder how they're feeling about this game at this point. I bet they're looking at that like, you're going to be the next Suicide Squad, aren't you? Regardless of what's going to happen with that game, it might not be. I bet it's going to be pretty decent and could have a chance to pop off. But I bet Warner Brothers and David Zaslav don't believe in that game.
I frankly forgot about it. And I think they may have also forgotten about it. And then once they remember, it's going to get suicide squatted.
Yeah,
I guess of like just put out to pasture.
I really did hate Wonder Woman 84. I didn't finish that movie. Something about it I found repulsive. I do not know what it was. I just couldn't stand watching that movie.
We could talk about Gal Gadot's other.
Oh yeah, she sucks.
Chances. Yeah. But like her ability to act has always left a lot to be desired.
Yes, definitely. I was part of it, but there's just something about that movie across the board. I was like, ugh, it gives me the heebie-jeebies.
And I'm okay with Kristen Wiig, but like, I don't know if I'd cast Kristen Wiig as like a main villain. Yeah. And then, maybe we don't need to talk about Wonder Woman 84 anymore.
Yeah. I was just thinking about that weird bit in that movie the other day. I'm like, how would you pull that off? You just wouldn't try. You just wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Just don't do that. The whole storyline. All right. Let's see here. Last two stories. Capcom announces 7th consecutive year of record results. This is from Jordan Midler at VGC. Here's the good news, everybody. Capcom has recorded a 7th consecutive year of record high profits fueled by sales of the Resident Evil, Street Fighter, and Dragon's Dogma franchises. In its financial results released on Thursday, which covers the year ending on March 31st, the Japanese publisher announced another year of record growth. These results also mark the company's 11th consecutive year of operating income growth. Net sales were around $977 million, which is up 21% year over year. Operating income was at $366 million, which is up 12.3% year over year. Ordinary income was $381 million, which is up 15% year over year. There's basically up across the board and up double-digit percentage points, and not like weak, like 10.5%, like 15% in some of these areas. It is this is the growth everyone is looking for. And I think this is also like does inform some of the stuff that happens with Xbox, right? Where like we are going to focus on fewer games and we're going to make them better and bigger. We're going to do that image of all the other games getting crossed off, and what's left at Bethesda is, Starfield and Skyrim and Fallout, and that's it. It's like, yeah, I get that. You're in a different business than Capcom though, and you're kind of behind the 8 ball. And Capcom has like done this from the ground up, where they built their technology and they did it one game at a time. And they got Resident Evil Remake going. They got Resident Evil 7 going and like rescued that franchise. And then they took that technology and applied it to Street Fighter. And then they took that technology and applied it to Dragon's Dogma. And they added open world stuff. They had this like deliberate plan that you can look back on and be like, smart people making smart decisions that best serve their games first. And those games are serving an audience that is clearly there and demanding these things. And you're not doing that at most of these other companies, but I would say especially Xbox. Not to make it a point of comparison. Really, this is a win for Capcom, and they have earned it, right?
I think so, especially with how much they trust their IP, because I knew that Monster Hunter was always popular, but then Monster Hunter World like kind of took over as like a major tentpole for Capcom moving forward, where people are like genuinely excited about Monster Hunter, which used to feel like a niche IP. And even with like Resident Evil, like folks were high on Resident Evil, but like they definitely bet on that horse. And it feels like Capcom is actually doing the thing, Grub, where they're planting seeds and then waiting for said seeds to grow and remembering to water them.
Absolutely.
And I don't know, it feels like they know what type of company they are. They know they have a strong brand identity. And not saying that everything hits the mark, but like
no,
they are like definitely producing very, very strong titles. Like, hey, Street Fighter 5 had a poor ass launch that soured a lot of people. But the bounce back from 5 to 6 has been insane.
It feels like a lot of lessons learned, right? It feels like they learned from those experiences and applied them to make everything better the next time around. And really, they were learning lessons from a bunch of other games too and applying that to Street Fighter.
Yeah. And like they've taken like these niche titles like Monster Hunter, like Dragon's Dogma, and translated them in a way to hit the bigger mainstream audience. And hey, people, just pay attention to Capcom. Also, Capcom, like, let's make a new Beautiful Joe. What about that?
Yeah. People in chat with the really good idea of let the Hi-Fi Rush people go over to Capcom and make a new Beautiful Joe, maybe in 3D. Oh, doesn't that sound real choice? That sounds like that would hit real nice. I'm fully on board for that. Bricked up over here. This is the kind of thing where I continue to be like, Capcom is the model. It's what everyone wants. All these companies are looking around. No matter what people say about Konami making, they're a bigger company than Capcom. They are not growing. They're actually shrinking. Konami's losing money here and there. Where Capcom 7 years in a row of profit growths and 11 years of revenue growths. It is undeniable what they've done, and it is a model that I do think is replicable. That's why people keep looking over to Capcom. It's like, hey, if we focus on the games that work and we have a strong grasp on the technology that we're using, I don't think everyone has to make their own engine anymore. You can still use Unreal, but if you're going to do that, commit to it and know that's what you're doing. And It's easier said than done. I get that.
Sure.
And the choice made 3 or 4 years ago can still be affecting you well into the future. But at a certain point, you got to just grab parts of this company by the horns and direct it, push it in a direction. And it doesn't feel like that's happening at a lot of other video game companies. And at Capcom, they know how to like wrangle their entire staff.
I think it speaks volumes, Grub, that whenever we do bring up Capcom, we get excited about the IP that they have laying in their back pocket.
Yeah.
Versus when we talk about even Sony to an extent of like, well, I don't know, are they going to bring back Ratchet and Clank? Are they going to bring back Sly Cooper? Yet when we bring up Capcom, we're excited about like, oh, they could bring back Beautiful Joe, God Hand, Mega Man. I don't know. I was about to say My Chemical Romance. They don't own My Chemical Romance. But like there are they have like a treasure trove of other IP that they could like bring out of the vault and like put a fresh new coat of paint on. Is Capcom the Ghosts and Goblins folks too?
Yes, that is right.
Hey, yo, give that to Tango Gameworks. Bring in Tango Gameworks.
Holy shit. That's like a good idea. That's like awesome, actually. That'd be great.
I kind of enjoyed the Maximo games as like a 3D like action adventure game.
Make like a fun, cartoonish, but still scary survival horror game that is also maybe a little from softy with the Maximo Ghost and Goblins vibes. Why not?
Yeah, like there was that
Maximo on this website.
Oh, we should. There was that Crow isometric
Crow Country.
No, not Crow Country. Death's Door or something.
Oh, Death's Door. Okay, yes, totally.
And hey, take an idea like that and apply that to something like Maximo or anything else that
I mean,
that Capcom has.
Stuff. People really like that. Yeah.
Oh my God! Like I don't know. I think about Okami and how you could take Okami and like do a Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
Think about that wolf ascending, Grub.
I mean, I think that with the technology improvements that they're always making to the Reach for the Moon engine, they will continue to get new ideas. And I think when they give themselves the opportunity for growth, not like the growth of, oh, we're selling more games, but the growth of, hey, we're adding a studio or something like that, or we're establishing a new team. I think that all those things are on the table. And I think that's like, they're going to do that deliberately, but I think they are going to do it. It won't be like, hey, we are building up 5 new teams all at once. That would be crazy. I think, though, that they have a good idea of like, how can we take this momentum and add one more layer on top, and then add one more layer on top, and then take a break and reload, improve the technology, make sure that we're keeping up on top of all that stuff. It just seems like the model company that you want making video games, which couldn't be happier about. I love Capcom.
And, you know, like one of the games that didn't quite necessarily hit, I still think was a fun game was like Exoprimal, right? Like what a weird ass game.
Yep.
Just raptors falling from the sky. And I was like, hey, that's kind of cool still. It's a novel idea. I'd be interested in what like an evolution of that idea could be.
Yep. I'm glad they tried it. You know, there's another game called Exoborn coming out. I think, is that Exoprimal? Nope, it's different from Exoprimal. It's a whole other game. All right, last story here. Localizer 8.4 offers to help translate Retro Game Challenge 1+2 Replay. This is from Ollie Reynolds and Nintendo Life. And this is a story for me. Tokyo-based Localizer 8.4 Limited, who we have some affiliation with the site. The podcast lives on giantbomb.com, so heads up on that, has offered to assist in translating Retro Game Challenge 1+2 Replay after Bandai Namco had confirmed that the game was not being planned for a Western release. Likely due to soft sales of the original Retro Game Challenge on DS, which is a shame because that game rules and everyone should go play it and start talking about it right now, which publisher Xseed had previously stated would need to reach 100,000 sales to justify a translation of the direct sequel. Bandai Namco's Midori Sugiyama and Indies Zero's Masanobu Suzio, I'm sorry about that, had spoken to Famitsu and to state that an official Western translation would not be happening. However, 8.4's COO, John Ricciardi, has taken to Twitter to state that the company would be happy to assist to the translation duties so long as a publisher were to step forward. So basically, 8.4 is like, hey, we see this. We worked on the first one. We made Retro Game Challenge based on Game Center CX, which is what the game is known as in Japan. They did a huge localization. They kind of changed almost everything about the way the game is presented for the DS version, and they always wanted to do the second one, never got a chance to, and now they're saying, hey, we would do it, we just need a publisher. to step forward. And I think these games would do a lot better now than they did then. Probably not like a million seller, but I think they can get over to 100,000, 200,000 probably. I mean, they would be cult hits, I think. And I love Retro Game Challenge, so I'm really hopeful.
Yeah, Grub, you seemed very excited about this on Twitter last night. Yep. I'm like, all right, yeah, give the homies at 8-4 the bag so they can do this. And their podcast lives on this website. I can't think of another group of folks, another studio that could pull this off and knock it out of the park.
Yep, they would crush it, I would think. So I hope they get a chance to do exactly that. All right, poll question is coming up here in a second. There we go. Man, I'm having like lots of technical problems. Yeah, what did you hear that?
Yeah, it's
digital farts.
Yeah,
that happened on my show.
It sounded like someone was like pulling at a cable or something.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look at everything. I don't know. Everything's falling apart over here, everybody. But we have the poll question: how many games have you purchased for the Nintendo Switch? 11% said they have purchased 0 games. For 1 through 5, 14% have replied for that one, and then 14% said they have purchased 6 to 10 games. I'm like noticing like it just keeps going up in terms of the number of respondents. For 11 to 20 games, 19% responded, and then 42% said that they've purchased 21 or more games. I wonder if it's like if I would have kept adding like more tiers to that, if more and more people would have been like, yeah, nope, I bought 30 and 40 games. I'm easily at like 40 or 50 games on this thing, probably more than that. And I think that's like legit, like purchase games, not just codes that I got. I got a lot of codes too. So, yeah. Are you in the 21 or more?
I think, I remember voting yesterday. I think I'm in the 21 or more.
Yeah,
I'm definitely in the 21 or more. Oh man, wait, is Astral Chain Capcom?
No, I think it was Nintendo published.
Oh, okay, never mind.
And then it was Platinum made it, I think that's how that broke down. Okay.
I don't know why, but I've been thinking about Astral Chain a lot.
Me too. Yeah, I saw a video of it and it's like, what is this game? And then someone's like, that's Astral Chain. I'm like, this looks awesome. I wish it was 60 frames per second, but it looks awesome. So I might give that a try.
But yeah, I think I regularly, despite having a massive SD card installed into my Switch, have to delete stuff because I'm like, I have too many games on this.
Yep. Yeah. I have 1 terabyte in my my Switch, and I started reaching the limit of that recently. So, yep. All right. New poll question coming up here in a second. In the meantime, Jan, what do we have happening on the website this week?
I believe we're going to attempt to play Helldivers 2 probably an hour after this program. Also, voicemail dump truck today with friends of the site, Evil Uno and Adam Cole, baby.
That's at a special time, right?
Special time, an hour later than you would normally expect. Voicemail dump truck, so that's 2 p.m. Pacific and 5 p.m. Eastern. And then tomorrow, more game mess. We were originally going to plan and do a Stardew multiplayer for UPF, but Grub, there's like a bunch of games that have popped out, so maybe we should just do a good old grab bag.
Let's do a grab bag. That sounds great. We could that Stardew Valley multiplayer idea. That's something we should come back to, though. But yeah, let's do a grab bag. There's plenty to check in. Let's look at Animal Well.
Animal Well, Little Kitty, Big City, Crows thing. It's a big week for animals.
Animals are out there doing their thing, everybody, and we're going to find out about it on UPF. That sounds like a plan.
Yep. And then BCR tomorrow as well to cap off the week. No hot topic just yet, but hey.
We'll come up with something.
Grub, I've been playing Indica.
You have been? Okay.
I checked it out because Lucy James seems so high on it.
All the Catholics I know are checking this out. So
hey, Catholics. I'm not going to say rise up because that has caused a lot of problems.
We don't need to say it. The Catholic agenda is much more subtle than that.
Exactly. But hey, pay attention to the content warnings of the game for sure. But like, I don't want to spoil anything, but
well, all right. I'm gonna have to look into this for myself. I've been playing Animal Well. That's what I've been doing. I'm trying to. I just started it, but Russ Frushtick reached out and said, "Hey, you should play this. You're gonna like it." I'm like, "Okay, Russ." And then like other people have said the same. Like, why is everyone telling me to play this game? And so now I'm playing it, like waiting for it to be like, when does it become a Jeff Grubb game? It's good, but I'm like, is there supposed to be this aha moment? I'm very early on, so we'll see.
This is the first game that Donkey has published,
yeah, this is
right?
Big Mode's first game. As far as I can remember, it's Big Mode's first game. It's definitely their biggest game.
God, do you remember the outrage on the internet and like how so many people were shitting on Dunkey for thinking he can publish games?
Yeah, that was weird. It was especially weird because it's like a lot of people have done that by that point, and now, especially at this point now, everyone's doing it. What's his name? The Ball Media guy, the guy that sits on the medicine ball. He's got his own game company, and everyone does. So
yeah.
Weird.
Like the Yogg's cast, right? They publish plenty of games
for years and years and years. Yeah, absolutely. So
yeah.
Hey, what?
Follow your dreams, my children.
Turns out what indie devs need from a publisher is someone with money and a platform. So there you go. All right. Let's see here. New poll question. Do you... Oh, no. Did I come up with a poll question? Let's see. You know what?
I think you did.
Yeah, I don't think I did. Here. Let's see here. Let's see. And we got something, right? We could do...
We got something.
Okay. Have you seen an ad for Hellblade 2?
I was thinking about that too, Greg.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. So have you seen an ad for Hellblade 2? An ad for Hellblade 2, and then just yes or no. There we go. We'll talk about that on Game This Mornings on Giant Bomb tomorrow, where we'll get the results. Speaking of Giant Bomb, we a little bit from now, Helldivers 2 very likely. We'll let you all know, but don't go too far. We'll probably send you off here in a second, but don't go too far. We'll be back later today with lots of new stuff. In the meantime, Jan, thank you so much for hanging out with me today and talking about video games, man. I really appreciate it.
That's my favorite way to start a Thursday.
You're all the best audience in gaming. I'm just glad I survived with all these smells happening. I'm glad it's not going off right now. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye.